Firefighters and other first responders are there for us in our darkest hours. But what happens when the darkness comes for them?
I would tell 21-year-old firefighters, look at this 61-year-old firefighter. There is no reason you have to go through what I did. And not just me. There's thousands of us that would say the same thing. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to wait until the wheels fall off before you reach out.
Hey, it's Julie. Welcome to Uncomfy, a show about sticking with moments that challenge us even when they are uncomfortable. And I know you're probably wondering, why would anybody choose to be uncomfortable? But I know from personal experience, and you probably do too, that sometimes a little discomfort has benefits if we can stay open and curious about it. That's what we're here to explore, so let's get uncomfy. Today, Chris Fields is with me. He spent 31 years with the Oklahoma City Fire Department, and now he works with a state agency as well as a number of different nonprofits to help first responders have these tough conversations about trauma that they experience on the job and why it's so important to seek help. I'm really pleased to have Chris Fields with me today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie. Thank you for having me, and welcome to all your listeners.
How did you end up a firefighter? What drew you to that as a career?
This church I grew up going to, my best friend was the pastor's son. So, I stayed in trouble when you run around with the preacher's kid. But his dad was also the chaplain of the Oklahoma City Fire Department. And so I kind of grew up around, there's a lot of firefighters that went to the church. So I kind of grew up around them. I got to visit fire stations with my friend and his dad when we were growing up. And I don't know, just the kind of the camaraderie and and the way the public viewed them and the things they did and all that just kind of always appealed to me. And, I had really kind of put that in the back burner of my mind. Life went on. I graduated high school, went to some college, and was just kind of thought, you know what? I always loved the thought of being a firefighter. And so I tested and got on the Oklahoma City Fire Department and did about 31 and a half years with them. And if my body would hold up, I'd do it all over again.
And when did you start to realize that there was more to this, maybe that there was some tough stuff also, that it was going to affect your mental health in ways that maybe you hadn't anticipated when you were thinking about the camaraderie and the heroism and the sort of, masculine, save the day kind of stuff?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I talk about that when I kind of travel and speak a little bit. I talk about, when, I don't know, the shows, you see the lights and the sirens and run up down the road and everybody's applauding them and, they're always the heroes. And even when you're in rookie school, you're training, you're doing all this physical stuff. You got to be in shape. In 1985, it was all about the brawn and the John Wayne and the bravado. But I always tell people in rookie school, even when you're practicing and learning CPR, right? I mean, I won't get graphic, but you're doing it on a dummy, CPR Andy or whatever it's called, and you're pushing and it's telling you if you're doing good compressions, deep enough, and all this kind of. My first call out of the box, first day at the station, hadn't even had my stuff on the rig an hour, and we make a full arrest, elderly gentleman. Well, first thing I do is get on compressions, and when I push down, and they tell you, you're doing it right when you hear you're going to have to crack ribs or a sternum. I mean, that's just what happens when you're doing effective CPR. So I'm on top of this lifeless body and I'm pushing down. I'm hearing their ribs crack and their sternum crack. And right then, on the way, I mean, not right then, but on the way back, once the adrenaline was gone, I thought, wow, this is real.
And did you feel like could you talk about that? Did you have a way to process that?
No, and that's the thing. It was, and I was raised by I was hired in 1985, worked for some, what I call grizzly old smoke eaters. And they're the ones that raised me in the fire service. And the ones that raised them were the same way. And it wasn't that firefighters were non-sympathetic or empathetic or didn't have a heart or didn't have feelings. Matter of fact, I think it's just the opposite to do this job. You've got to have all that. But they don't ever come out and say it. It's through actions. They let you know, you got to put that one away. I can't have you focused on that. If we're in a house fire, I need you focused on this, not that. So you learn to compartmentalize it and push it down.
So you talk about Chris Fields 10 years into your career. So you're not a newbie at this point. You've responded to lots and lots of traumas. A really big one comes along. It's a mass fatality event. It's the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. More than
Right.
100 people die, 168 people, hundreds are injured. In what ways was that, I guess, maybe a trigger or an instigator of kind of like even more challenge for you with mental health?
Yeah, April 19th was like something you can never prepare for. You can say you're ready for anything, take on anything, but to have that much damage. I mean, and here we have tornadoes that rip through here, and we have damage and lives affected, but it's, it's over here, it's over there, it's 3 miles apart, 20 miles apart. This was in a 1 square block area, a 9-story building collapsed and 168 fatalities. And that the fatalities don't, that's 700 and something or 500 and something injuries. So you couldn't get away from it. And rightfully so. It was even covered in the media, rightfully so, every day. I mean, every day we relived it. And I say we, and that's not to say, woe is us. We had it easier than the families and the victims of the bombing, but it was just different than any other type of call, to where a first aid call, you load that patient up in the ambulance, they're gone to the hospital. You might hear a follow up, you might not. This was 168 lives that we heard every follow up. We knew the injuries, and then seeing the damage every day, either on the news or in the newspaper, or responding down there and working your shift at the bomb site.
And on top of that, you end up in one of the iconic images of in the media coverage of this bombing, where you're leaving the wreckage and you're carrying a baby in your arms. She's deceased, Bailey Allman. It goes viral so far as that existed back then, but it's everywhere. It goes all the way around the world. It's on T-shirts. It's like, I imagine people are calling you up. The press wants to talk to you. So how did that additional visibility that you had to take on affect your ability to process the grief and the trauma you'd experienced?
Um, Golly, it was I guess a whirlwind, for lack of a better term. Like I said, it went from a, born and raised right here, simple little Oklahoma guy, and found out about the photo at 11 o'clock that night, the day of the bombing, is when I found out about a photo even being taken. Never saw it for the first time until the next morning, when it was everywhere, every paper, on every headline around the world. My first thought when I saw that was, I thought, because there were still so many people that hadn't been found and identified, and people were still waiting for find out their loved ones were out or in there. And my first thought was, man, I wonder if that family even knows, you know, I wonder if that's their first, and like my mom and my wife all told me, mothers know. A mother would look at that and know that's her child. And so I wondered if she even knew that, the mother even knew that Bailey was deceased. And I always tell people, being singled out in a profession that is, prides itself on teamwork and being together. And so being singled out, using the word hero and all this stuff was just like, but I always tell people too that the support I had from the guys and girls on the Oklahoma City Fire Department is what got me through it. And I struggled with the photo. I'm never going to get away from it. It's not who I am, but it's just part of, I'm going to be linked to that forever with Bailey and Bailey's mom, Erin. So it was a tough process, took its toll. I didn't do good at it later in life, but so I don't know. We'll get to that.
Yeah, well, if we could talk about that. So, what did it take for you to finally? Because I know from your having told your story before that it would be another 12 years or 13,
Hmm.
14 before you actually received a diagnosis of PTSD related to that, but also probably, a cumulative trauma
Right,
of
right.
what it takes to be a first responder. So what happened to finally get you to be willing to talk to someone outside the brotherhood, right?
I and I'm glad you said cumulative trauma, because I am blessed to get my platform from the photo and from the bombing, and I know that, and it gives me the opportunity and the ability to talk about the cumulative trauma. You know, as simple as, not discounting the type of call, but as simple as doing compressions for the first time on somebody, to losing 3 brothers in a house fire, to the bombing, to numerous other, calls that affects, we take on everybody's trauma, that we respond on. It's just, if you do this job, you got to have a heart. And with that heart, it gets stepped on with calls we make. And I get emotional talking about uh, what it took for me to get to that point to talk about it. Because what it took was um, me almost, losing my family, my career, my life. It took a lot. Everybody's rock bottom is different. And I know what my rock bottom is. And when I got there, it was just, I don't know, it was just for all the things I had done to my family and to myself and to friends to get to a point to where I thought I couldn't do any more damage to people. Um, to find out that those same people were still there, willing to help me, was a big impact on me. And actually speaking publicly about it, I don't know. A friend of mine named Jay Dobbins, he's a retired ATF agent. He's infiltrated the Hells Angels and did a bunch of stuff, big time. He looks ferocious. He's a big old teddy bear. He invited me. I had never met the man. He invited me out to Arizona to speak at a little deal he was putting together, and I had never spoke in public about it. I'd done interviews since then, talk about kind of the spiral and the things I had done and where I'd been. But he invited me out there to speak, and so I don't have anything. I don't have any like little PowerPoint or nothing. I just get there and tell my story. And some of the feedback that I got from other first responders and first responders' families that were there was really what kind of thought I thought, because you always hear these sayings about, if you have a story, you need to tell it. Your darkness could be somebody else's light. All this stuff. And I used to go, that's kind of high in the pie stuff. But when I saw it and it affected my life, I thought, hey, there's something to that. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get up there and be vulnerable. And my whole point of me even speaking is to say, you don't have to get to that point. But yeah, I share my journey. I share the fall. I share what I call the rise, and that was reaching out for help. I went to
Would you
get
tell me about
treatment in a
that?
place.
The reaching out for help. Tell me about that moment, that day. What did that feel like for you?
Yeah, I had a little rough night one time. Me and my wife had a little. I wasn't living at home. We were separated for like 16 or 17 months. We had a not so good night conversation, so I decided to partake in my alcohol and the Xanax I was taking and all that. And woke up the next morning. I remember laying there in my apartment in the living room. I thought, man, there is no way this is my purpose. And I didn't think my purpose was getting to speak and do podcasts and all that. My purpose that I was in my mind saying what I should be doing is being a good father, a good husband, and a good friend, which I was failing at all three. So I called my wife and she picked up the phone and she said, what do you want? And I said, I want to come home. And she said, come on. She didn't even hesitate. And she'll tell people she knew it wasn't Chris Fields she was dealing with. She tells people when she looked in my eyes, it was just like blank. And the marriage being where it is and being saved and all that is a kind of a bonus and a blessing, because she'll tell people that really wasn't even her thought. She thought, I don't know if we can ever get past this, but I want him healthy so he can be a dad. So that was really kind of her, you know, I want him healthy to be around. I may not like him, but I want him healthy. And that's kind of when it started. I reached out, called our chaplain, went to a place in California called WCPR, West Coast Post Traumatic Retreat. Was introduced to EMDR therapy. And I think what really helped me there, if you give me a few minutes to tell this quick little story, when you first get to WCPR, I assume it's like what goes on at AA meetings and all that, where you stand up, introduce yourself, And of course, here we had to stand up, introduce yourself, tell a little bit of your story. I stood up, told my story, and thought, get some of that on you people. Like, y'all have no clue. This little rookie cop from LA stood up, 22, 23 years old, I think she was, told her story. And I was like, oh my gosh. I just stood up and told that story and think it's bad what she went through. Next guy stands up, tells his story, and her name was Megan. And me and Megan looked at each other like, we just told our story thinking it's bad. Listen to what, man, it was that way around the entire room. So that's when it kind of just hit me like, okay, I am not alone in this, and I am not the only one. Every emotion that I've ever felt on every call through my 31-year career, or at that time, 20 something year career, was perfectly normal, perfectly valid. I have a friend who's a clinician. He's a retired cop from Virginia. He always says it's usually not the trauma that we experience, it's how we deal with it. So that's when I just thought, everything I feel is perfectly normal and perfectly fine. It's just dealing with it is what I got to get figured out. And through EMDR therapy and all that kind of stuff, I did.
And that involves a fair amount, as I understand it, of sort of being willing to sit with the really uncomfortable emotions, but also kind of revisit the traumatic experiences in a sort of
Yes.
empowering and coping way, right?
Yeah,
I'm
it does.
way oversimplifying the process,
Right,
but
and I don't know enough about it because I am still just an old retired firefighter. So, you know, but all I know is it gives you the ability to talk about a traumatic event without experiencing those feelings that normally bring you to your knees. So you can talk about it and process. It was just like, I don't know. I wish I'd come up with a new saying, cliche, like, getting that gorilla off your back or that weight off your shoulders, to be able to talk about it and process it and deal with it and come out of there not feeling like I had to go get my Xanax or, have a drink, or got back to work, got back to the fire station. And the first thing I did was told everybody where I'd been, what I'd been through, what I'd done. And that was pretty empowering. So I guess that was really maybe the start of saying, okay, it's okay to tell your story. And I always tell people, that's usually what I close with, man. If you got a story, I don't care if you're telling it to one person or 1,500 people. If you've got a story to tell, you need to tell it.
Chris, thank you for sharing that so
Okay.
vulnerably. Would you finally just tell us a bit about this state-funded program, this agency that you now work for in Oklahoma that's come about in the last couple of years?
Yeah, it was started by a retired state trooper here in Oklahoma who's been down the same road. It's called the Oklahoma First Responders Wellness Division. It's about mental health for first responders in the state, but we take more of a holistic approach. We're all peer team members. We're all peer trained to do debriefings and stuff, but we have classes on mental health, physical fitness, financial health, spiritual health and growth, how it all ties together. We offer what they call sleep therapy beds, these massage chairs. They can get so many sessions of counseling, and it's all free for first responders in the state of Oklahoma.
Has it made a difference? Do you see it
Yeah, oh,
destigmatizing the struggle?
yes. I just came from the office a little bit ago, and the director, Danny Long, we were talking about, he was getting ready to go show the state how many people have now. Not everybody's come to the office for a counseling session, or not everybody, but how many people have actually reached out to the wellness division. It's staggering. They did a person we work with, a clinician, works for Oklahoma State University. They have this family wellness deal. They did a survey in the state of Oklahoma amongst all first responders, law enforcement, fire, dispatch, EMS. And they listed everything from sleep issues to marital issues and it was the low number, but 8% said that they had contemplated ending their life within the last year. So that always tells us there's a need for it out there. And so yeah, I work with them along with a couple other nonprofits, and I'm just, like I say, I'm blessed to do it.
Speaking of these other groups that you're participating with, Chris, where can people find the work that you're doing or find resources?
One of them is called Trauma Behind the Badge. It's www.traumabehindthebadge.us. Our little cliche statement is motivation through tough conversations. And that's what we do. We get together, we travel, we speak together. And then a great nonprofit is Survive First, www.survivefirst.us. Nonprofit that takes the no out of first responders seeking help. I'd highly recommend looking both of them up and seeing what resources are available.
Chris Fields is a retired Oklahoma City firefighter. He is a peer team member on the Oklahoma First Responders Wellness Division, and those groups he works with are Trauma Behind the Badge and Survive First. And if you or someone you know, a first responder or otherwise, is in crisis and needs support, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is free. It's national. It's available 24/7. Just dial 988 to talk to someone. Chris Fields, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate it.
And thank you for getting uncomfy with us today. I am so glad that mental health is something we're getting more and more comfy talking about, but it's still really hard and scary to ask for help. I would love to hear how that's gone for you or someone you love. Send an email to uncomfy@byu.edu or find us on social media. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Uncomfy is a BYU radio podcast. Samuel Benson produces it, and the team includes Hyobin Kim and Sam Payne. Our theme music was composed by Kelsey Ney. I'm Julie Rose. Can't wait to get uncomfy with you again next week. Hey, uncomfy listeners, it's Julie here. Quick recommendation for you. Have you heard of this podcast called The Apple Seed? It's another BYU radio program. And this show is all about stories, folk tales, fairy tales, personal anecdotes, family tales. Whether you're on a road trip or you're just looking to wind down at bedtime or keep the kids occupied, The Apple Seed is perfect for the whole family. My favorite are the family tales. We've all got these stories in our families that we tell and pass down from kids to the grandkids to the great-grandkids. I love those stories. And the best part about The Apple Seed is that the stories you hear might actually inspire your family to start sharing more of those tales with one another. So give The Apple Seed a listen. You can find it anywhere you get podcasts.